I'm going to call this work session to order on AO 2019-156, proposal of a public safety tax measure. Before we go into the presentation, I have agreed to give Moira Gallagher with Project 20s a few minutes to speak. Go ahead, Moira. Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's do introductions really quick. John.
John Weddle.
Pete Peterson.
Thanks, Alex.
Cameron Perez Radio.
Forrest Dunbar.
Suzanne LeGrand.
Felix Rivera.
Brett Dyson.
Crystal Kennedy.
On the phone?
Mr. Chair, I'm on the phone.
Yeah. Christopher Constant
I
on
am
the phone.
too.
And Austin Kuhn-Davidson is on the phone. Thank you. Go ahead, Moira.
Where did you want me to go?
You can speak there.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Moira Gallagher. I'm not here to pitch you on Project 20s again. Actually, I'm here because I think it's important to talk about the process that I experienced as a citizen going through this, trying to work on putting an initiative on the ballot. So over the last few weeks, I talked to a lot of you. I've been told by many of you that the Project 20s campaign was too late, that there wasn't enough time to consider it, or that it was coming to you at the last minute. In addition to that, one assembly member told me that I was, quote, gumming up the process and needed to, quote, get on board with the plan, whatever that meant. I'm still confused by that. I wanted to talk about what this experience meant and what it was like from my perspective. This is not to castigate anybody, but I hope to illuminate areas where this public process can be improved. The Project 20s campaign began in May. Over the summer, I spoke with more than half of you in person about the initiative. Specifically, I met with Mr. Dunbar on June 11th at Sparrard Roadhouse, Ms. Quinn-Davidson on June 17th, also at Sparrard Roadhouse. We really love their talks. Ms. Zalatel on June 19th, Mr. Weddleton on June 21st, the follow-up conversation on July 28th, Mr. Constant on June 27th, and Mr. Rivera on August 25th. In those initial meetings, not only was I letting assembly members know about our initiative, but I asked for input. Mr. Weddleton suggested that hillside fire evacuation roads and fire station Eagle River Valley be among the projects, and they were ultimately included at his suggestion. Ms. Zalatel suggested that funds be allocated specifically to permanent supportive housing, and they were at her suggestion. Mr. Dunbar suggested that a citywide trails rehabilitation effort was critical for improving safety and cleaning up existing problems with homeless encampments, and that was ultimately included at his suggestion. Update follow-ups were sent via email to the 4 assembly members who had expressed potential interest in sponsoring Project 20s, Mr. Dunbar, Ms. Quinn-Davidson, Mr. Constant, and Ms. Zalatel on August 2nd, September 8th, and October 14th. Ms. Zalatel, her aide, and I communicated extensively via email, including on August 6th, August 9th, August 23rd, October 9th, October 14th, November 1st, and November 8th. During this time, I and other members of the Project 20s team were meeting with other officials within the municipality for help in putting together our formal initiative. We met with Mr. Falsey and Mr. Bockenstead on August 12th with multiple follow-up email discussions in September, and met with OMB Director Wilbur on October 10th. We met with members of the Budget Advisory Commission in late October and early November, who arranged for an ad hoc BAC meeting to be scheduled to discuss Project 20s. The invite went out on November 26th, the meeting held on December 16th. I want to mention now that despite sending written correspondence and follow-ups to multiple members of the Assembly throughout September and October, with the exception of one person, we received silence back. Only one Assembly member responded, and it was to say that they were too busy with the budget to be considering other revenue measures and that we should come back later. Well, we waited until after the budget, and we came back later. At that time, we were told it was too late to be considered. You can imagine our frustration. You can imagine that this frustration was additionally compounded when we discovered that the Assembly had, in fact, been considering other revenue measures. On top of all of this, I'm told that a meeting was held in October where groups proposing new revenue measures were invited to present to the Assembly. And despite having met with most of you by this point on Project 20s, no one from Project 20s was invited to present at this meeting. I know many of you personally. I have worked with you as individuals and as public officials on numerous projects. I know that your job is difficult, that there is more work than hours in the day, and that you are bombarded with emails and calls. I am not here to cast blame. I am here to ask that as we go forward, you please refrain from blaming Project 20's campaign staff for not informing you of our initiative in a timely manner. We did. I'm sure we did not do things perfectly. In hindsight, there are a lot of things I would have done differently. I'm not a professional campaign manager. I don't do this for a living, and I've never done this before. But here's the point that I really want to make. I'm what some people call the 4 W's. I am a wealthy, well-educated, white woman. In our society, that makes me about as privileged as you can possibly get. I am also, I have to imagine, in the top percentile of Anchorage residents in terms of wanting to understand the political process and be engaged in it. I'm a longtime community council president. I attend scores of public meetings every year, and yet I have been stymied by how to get my assembly members to engage and how to effectively be involved in this public process. If even I am struggling, what do you think this experience is like for someone who say doesn't speak English as a first language, or works 12-hour shifts 6 days a week, or doesn't have a high school degree, or is a single parent working 2 jobs, or who doesn't have 6 members of the Anchorage Assembly's personal cell phone numbers on their speed dial. This process is very problematic. I know you're all doing your best, and so am I. We're all on Team Anchorage. I urge you to consider throughout this process and all the rest of these things that you are talking about this session, to think about how we can continue working together and how to make this a better city. I promise you haven't heard the last of Project 20s. Please help me to talk about how we can make this process better as we do so. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. So I need to move us on. We are going to go ahead and move over to Mr. Dyson. We have an S version. Do you want to walk us through it?
Wait, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Constant, we have now 24 minutes to go through this S version. Do you have very brief commentary?
I just would say for my part, I received an email on 7/1 and I received an email on 12/27. I've had a few conversations aside from that, and I am one who has said I am just not prepared to move forward on $375 million of projects without enough time to look closely at all of it. And so I'm sorry it's come across that you feel, Ms. Gallagher, that you were not heard. I think that this is the only proposal before us that has aspiration attached to it, and I am very supportive of that. It's not timely, and I look forward to this conversation going forward.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn it over now to Mr. Dyson.
I'm sorry, what do you want from me?
You want to walk us through the S version?
Could I say something first, please? I'm sorry. So Mr. Dyson had asked me to prepare our S1 version, and it was just completed this morning. It incorporates some of the changes that the neighbors have talked about and listed at the previous meetings and Worksession. And I don't think you have copies of it. The copies are coming down. I pulled it out here. But Mr. Dyson gave me some instructions as to what to do with this S1. I think the most effective way to explain it to you, short time we have, is if Mr. Dyson could go ahead and tell the body what you asked me to change, from like 1 verse to 2 verse, and then I'll fill in any gaps and changes that I made that you didn't mention.
Yeah, thank you. So I started 3 months ago and told you all that I was working on this, invited all the comments and help you could give me, and I had heard that there's a couple other proposals being, and I asked whoever that was to let's talk and work together. It never happened. The only one that made any contact with me was the mayor, and so on. So that's just the facts of it for whatever. So we started with, on the sales tax end of this, with what Bill Evans had done a few years ago, which was really pretty well done. And the only thing I changed much in that was I took out the use tax thing, which was kind of a mechanism that was supposed to get money, claw money back from people who went outside of the borough or the municipality and stuff. So that went out. Just 3 or 4 days ago, Alex got the information to me. The initial estimate I'd gotten from the administration was 3% had produced $90 million a year. Now they've come back to me with more active figures and say it's liable to be somewhere between 110 and maybe up to 150. Is that what it was? Yeah, and so on. So that's more money than I ever anticipated. So in this next version, I've changed it to have 2/3 go to property tax relief. And Alex has agreed that in the first ramp-up years, it's going to be hard to spend that much money and so on. And so we agreed in the S1 version that any unspent funds would relapse to the property tax relief. And so on, and also, as I expected, that Alex tells me that the city can issue revenue anticipation notes. Is that the right word? And let the record reflect, one time I remembered accurately. And that is that if knowing that certain revenue stream is coming, they can start expending funds. certainly to gear up for the administration of it, but I'm also for the implementation of the improvements. Then the other thing, Meg, who I appreciate, has given me a list of things she wanted to change. And by and large, she wanted to broaden it from just fighting crime to enhancing public safety. I don't want to lose the emphasis on fighting crime, but I'm okay with broadening it. So I think we agreed to put both of our terms in there, public safety and fighting crime. And I think I put hers ahead of mine, and so on. But always in the intention, what we're doing here is to, particularly as we need to enhance mental health, substance abuse treatment. And I'm all for that, and I'm all for all the funds for public safety, all the funds that are needed to do whatever we need to do, not just for the criminals who need treatment, but everyone, in the city. So that's a broadening of the scope of where this goes. And I've played with the number, and I'm open to your counsel here. What's the limit on what you can, single purchase object you can buy with no taxes? Originally, I think in here was $200, and I don't know the right number, but a poor person be able to save up their money and buy an older car makes sense to me. So in this next version, I've changed it to 10,000. That's not a bad number, but if there's a better number, let me have it. Felix, Mr. Chairman.
Jump in at this point. So the maximum tax from the sales tax, it's common in some other jurisdictions. I took a look at Juneau, Wasilla, Kenai Peninsula, and they all have a maximum tax amount. They vary though, and they all worded as the maximum price that the sales tax applies to rather than the maximum amount of tax. But one of them is $500 purchases and tax in excess of $500. The sales tax doesn't apply, just the first $500. Another one, the first $1,000, and the first $12,400 the sales tax applies. And so Mr. Dyson's proposal, I changed it to the first $10,000. But as he said, he's open to amendments to that amount Tuesday night.
And I've had some interesting mixed thoughts about what you're doing on yours, on the 51%. And I believe it is constitutional. I think it's not unethical. And I didn't mean to imply that. I wish we wouldn't do it, because the city of Anchorage's citizens, rightly or wrongly, put the 60% in there, and I want to respect that. But our Constitution does allow, and you and I've had a place, would be clear with them, as you have been, straight up with it. So I'm willing to change this to the 51% using your language, and I'll give you attribution, and so on. So I think I've covered the scope of what we've changed here. Yeah, and I wished I had an opportunity and had prepared a slide that shows the finances and the money's going to property taxes. Looks to me like the average homeowner might save somewhere between $400,000 and $850,000 or $50 on their annual taxes. And as we heard last night in Girdwood, some people from the quote hospitality industry are saying, okay, you guys, we're going to general quarters, all hands on deck, we're raising the money, going to fight you guys. But also one of us said, we favor a broad sales tax. And if my proposal gets selected by the voters, there is a 3% sales tax on liquor there. So we would have a 3% alcohol tax as a result of this package. And then somebody is well in a position to say, I've said, Fred, you have no idea of the enthusiasm that developers and large property owners and so on and so forth are going to have for the property tax relief. I've just said, Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Zolotel?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dyson, for the continued work on this proposal. And what I want to highlight about this one in particular is I think this is the start of, as I kind of mentioned last night, combining several of the proposals that are out there. I think I took my hand last night. I think we all have similar goals here, which is to shore up the gap that's been left by a decrease in state funding. And to address very real and serious issues we see. If I take all three proposals and I chart them out, they all work together. They work together in real and substantial ways. They all actually kind of work together even in terms of revenues that you could want to put towards the various things. I know there's been some concern about public safety and an alcohol tax because the amounts of money, but then the sales tax would raise a larger amount of money. The sales tax, which vehicle it is, I guess I would just really encourage the members as we consider the various proposals to consider if we shouldn't take some time to determine if these proposals can be worked together into a unified proposal. Because we have a unified goal and a unified problem. So that's kind of where I'm at. I've provided changes to Fred. I've worked with John. I have amendments for the others because I feel like we need to put the best thing forward, and to the extent that we can do that cohesively, even if it's potentially a 2-week delay to the 28th, we've got some time, that we should have that conversation. I think it's very important.
Thank you. Mr. Dunbar?
Thank you. So a couple things. First, can we go to the page where the dedication? Could you scroll down so we can see what changes you made to that? Okay, so this generated the most. Oh wait, hold on. That's something else.
That's not it?
Oh no, there it is. Okay, so it's additional police officer positions, equipment and training, assistant processing, forensic incidents, prosecutorial, including defense counsel, good. Mental, behavioral health and substance misuse services, and then got sort of inmates and convicts, and then mental support for court-ordered programs and homeless services. Great. Okay, good. So that won't require any more amendments from me. So my next sort of comment and question for Mr. Dyson, I'm just sort of saying it to you now so you're not surprised on Tuesday. So on Wednesday, I went to the Budget Advisory Commission in my role as the budget chair, and we had a good conversation about all these proposals. And they are going to give us I think Mr. Wilbur was helping them draft it. They're going to send us a letter that says, we support the original alcohol tax version, we prefer that over the S1 version, and we're opposed to the sales tax because we think it's regressive, particularly the property tax relief provision. So I'm going to bring, and then we had a suggestion from a specific Budget Advisory Commission member that it would be less regressive if we dropped the sales tax percentage from 3% to 1.5% and eliminated the property taxes. So you get the same amount of money for public safety, but you get rid of something that really compounds the regressive nature of the sales tax. Because as you said, what happens is you collect money from sales tax, mostly from small transactions, and you give it to Walmart Alyeska and other large commercial property tax payers, many of whom are located out of state. And then of course one Budget Advisory Commission member advised me that he had done economic analysis back the last time this was proposed that showed that actually even for an average homeowner, you weren't getting more in property tax relief than you were paying for taxes unless you had a house worth more than, I think it was about $400,000. So somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000. So renters get hammered, large commercial property tax owners do really well, and wealthy homeowners do really well. So I will be bringing an amendment that eliminates the property tax provision and halves the amount, so you still get the same amount towards public safety. And that was sort of that was sort of the feedback I got from the Budget Advisory Commission, and they should be bringing a letter to us. They just have to draft it. So I guess I'll have a question in there.
May I respond?
Sure.
Yeah, and I do not, the regressive thing is important to know, but the idea of government not being Robin Hood. But my first thought was it was property tax relief only for homeowners, domestic homeowners, and I'm told that that's not legal. We cannot do that, and so on. But I was thinking exactly the same way. But there's always been voices, some informed voices in our community saying we need to broaden however it is we collect taxes, just relying on it for one way. And this was an attempt to do that. And I can tell you that, the big property owners will make out, and so on and so forth. And some of them might pass the savings on to the consumers, but I wouldn't bet on that one. But we're accomplishing that goal. And I think even though the big property owners will really benefit, lots of homeowners, most homeowners will be glad to see their bill go down. And if Alex is right, and I've never caught him being wrong, the $700 or $800 reduction on a home will be meaningful, and I think we'll gain a lot of support there. So it's a two-edged sword, and I think we'll come down on the opposite sides. But I respect what you're saying.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins, did you have something you wanted to add? Okay, and then just as a reminder, if we could try to be brief with our comments. Go ahead.
Sure. I have two things. One, when you look at this, it's the things in italics that are changed language in this one. That should be obvious. As a second, Mr. Dunbar's the Budget Advisory Commission proposed a resolution about those things that you just mentioned. Thank you. And then the third thing was regarding some statements Mr. Dyson and Mr. Dunbar just made that we can't dedicate the property tax relief to only residential or homeowners. And I mean, right now, I wouldn't want to try to do that, but I don't think it's necessarily true that we cannot do that. In researching this, I saw some other jurisdictions in the lower 48 and Institute of Tax and Economic Policy have a system called split assessment roll taxation, where they can have a different levy amount for different types of property. And that sounds very complicated. I don't want to try to attempt to get into that at this point, but I just thought I would mention that I'm not sure that it's true that we cannot do so. It would just take a lot of work and analysis and involvement from people smarter than me in this area to figure it out.
Thank you. Mr. Prince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Fred, for all your work on this. My first thought when you said that you were willing to go to the 50+1 versus the 60 is maybe you could split the difference. Okay, that's a joke. 55%. Sorry.
Cut the baby in half.
Actually, the question I have has to do with the property tax exemption piece, and I know it's been raised. If this goes into effect, your tax, and then at the end of 6 years, the community decides to discontinue it, then property taxes will go way up.
Back up.
Or back up. And instead of giving 2/3 to, or portioning 2/3 to property tax relief, what if it was 1/3 to immediate property tax relief, 1/3 set aside in case it discontinues, so a kind of like softer land? No, can't do that?
Well, sure you can. Sure you can, but it's a legitimate question. Mm-hmm. What happens at the end of 6 years?
Right.
And if we don't, the voters, and see, I picked the 6 years, but it was time for these things to get implemented and see if it's working. Mm-hmm. Time to see if the state steps back up on all of these sorts of things and to reevaluate. But the voters will have a choice then. Do we like what's happened on crime, mm-hmm. And do we and the property tax? If so, you can lead them, because you'll be here, I hope. Maybe you'll be mayor, to encourage going forward something that's worked and worked well. But there will be a transition, mm-hmm. but one we can foresee.
Sure, and possible incentive, I suppose. And the other just quick point is one suggestion relayed to me was, is it possible to have like a municipal level pick, click, give sort of equivalent where people could opt out of the property tax money and send it to a nonprofit?
Why not?
I don't know how you would do that, but just that
I'd
was
be glad to see your amendment.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr.
And
President.
support it.
Thanks. I guess I just want to build off what Ms. Zalatel said, and that I struggle with the process, and I realize that it is the process, and I need to learn the process. But the fact that we can't sit in a room and lay out, what do we want to tax? How much do we want to tax? What is the best strategy in terms of a tax? And lay out those categories and have a collective conversation about what is the best proposal we can bring forward, as opposed to having all of these sort of little bits of things happening and then us trying to figure out how to bring the best one forward. So I guess I just want to say that I really agree that if you take a step back and look at this, and you look at, we've got sales tax versus alcohol tax. Everyone I've talked to said the only reason that we're choosing alcohol as opposed to a broad-based tax is because we think it's a better strategy of getting passed. It's not because of a belief that that's a better way to tax. The second thing is the amount, the percentage. There doesn't seem to be a lot of commitment of whether it should be a 2, a 3, or a 4, or a 5. That's a strategy conversation about what people will vote for, what it pays for. I mean, public safety, mental health, addiction, homelessness, but a lot of that is strategy. The words we choose and what people will vote for. There's not a lot of distance between what we feel like is the need and what we feel like we need to invest in. The idea of property tax relief is a strategy because it is a way to get people to think, okay, great, well, I'll vote for it because I'm going to get relief. So the point I guess I'm trying to make is that most of the conversation that I've been involved in is not around what is the best tax plan or based on what we need. It's a lot about strategy, about what is going to sell. And so I guess I would reinforce what Ms. Zalatel said. If there's an opportunity between now and a deadline for us to get in a room and have another conversation about the potential of merging these three things together and finding something that we could live with, and that we've set a historic bar by passing a budget 11-0. Imagine passing a tax plan that's 11-0, and what kind of message that would send to the public. And even if it doesn't pass by the public, it would set us up to have a better conversation next time. It would give us a place to go, okay, that didn't work, now let's build on that. As opposed to throwing out these sort of three different plans and spending a lot of our energy trying to tweak them. So I guess that's my proposal. I would propose that we consider postponing this decision next week and giving ourselves an opportunity to actually try to see if we can merge these three together and come out with something that makes sense. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
May I respond, Mr. Chair?
Sure, briefly.
Yeah. It's a tension here on doing what's right and doing what we can get done in this fight. My focus has been the public safety thing. My chart shows that 2,500 to 3,000 criminals or people arrested, not getting charged and being recycled into the system. And every one of those, the mayor tells me I'm pretty darn accurate at doing it. So that's where I started. As soon as I ran the numbers on a sales tax, it produces so much revenue, and so on. And doing it's going to cost us $3 million a year to set up to do the collection administrative thing. I thought, okay, we got that much sunk cost just on the administration here. What else could we do? And the push by very knowledgeable people to broaden the tax base so it's not just one thing. So then I thought, okay, there's two good things we can do that everybody agrees should be done some way. So that's what got started. And I don't want to pander too much to get off our principles to get it passed. And that's a balance that we're trying to go. And I very much agree with you that we can probably handle out something better in the next 2 weeks. And I think the chair is thinking we're going to go that way.
Thank you, Mr. Weddleton.
A little bit on
property tax relief, I think it's more than a strategy. I think a lot of people want to diversify our sources of income. And it's, in a city that talks about affordable housing, when you get multifamily, you're paying property tax, you decrease that, you take that out of the cost of doing it. And to talk about kind of forced comics a little bit, I mean, people paying large commercial property owners aren't just some fat cats living far away smoking cigars making big bucks. Typical commercial lease passes that on through common area maintenance. You're paying insurance, you're paying your share of the property tax, your share of, plowing the sidewalks or parking lot and so on. So the large commercial property owner isn't paying those property taxes, it's the small businesses that lease them. So it's mostly small businesses that are paying that property tax. It's not the commercial property owners. So help the small business.
Thank you. Ms. Kennedy is in the queue, but she had to take a phone call. Mr. Constable.
Thank you. Just to dovetail with what Mr. Weddleton just said, and I'm generally or almost universally not supportive of taxes that are regressive, but the idea of providing an alternative revenue stream that does help shift the burden solely off the backs of our property taxpayers is definitely of value. And I don't want to add into the mix another hobgoblin that we continue to hear about. Once you levy a tax, it never goes away, that whole hobgoblin. But if we're going to spend the money it takes to step up a division on taxation and all the staffing and the software, it's going to be millions and millions, more than the $3 million a year to operate, but many millions of dollars of investment to make it operate. One proposal that somebody brought to me that was, I thought, quite thoughtful would be that we do add a plank that is property tax relief to any of the proposals. And then all the proposals, however you structure them, could expire except leave the property tax relief at 1% or whatever it is in perpetuity, so that we don't stand up a division, create a whole software program, hire a whole bunch of people, and then at an arbitrary point in the future fire them all. Instead, keep those people on for property tax relief. Anyhow, just my thought.
Thank you. Ms. Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question in regard to the maximum amount of tax. My understanding, and this could be totally wrong, but my understanding was that Wasillas is $20, that you will not pay more than $20 worth of tax. And I just wondered if maybe Dean has the answer to that, what their specific number is.
That sounds about right. I think that the way they phrase it in their code is the sales tax applies to the first $500 of a purchase, and that amounts to about $20-30 of tax. So.
Okay, so if ours is $10,000, then we're talking $300 worth of tax.
Right.
Would be our ceiling.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, all right.
Junos is more.
The Junos is more?
Yes, 12,400.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, then I have one final comment, and then we need to end.
I was just going to say that the 10,000 maximum equal to $300 maximum tax.
Thank you. Mr. Gates?
Thank you. Just one comment. It's been Clarkson passed out the S1 version, and it's only part of it. It's missing pages 15 forward. Because there aren't any changes to those pages. I just wanted to save some paper. So any changes in the S1 or in the book or anything.
Thank you. Yeah, so just one final comment from me, just in response to some of the discussion around collaboration. I think in general, collaboration is a great idea, and we often seek to do that. I also don't think it's not unhealthy for us to have competing proposals. In fact, I think sometimes that can be quite healthy for us to do that, and for us to try to better each other's proposals, and then in the end, the best one gets to the voters. I do want to say, in response to this idea that us voting on a proposal 11-0 would have an impact in the end on whether this gets passed or not by the voters. I don't think there would be a clear connection there and I put it this way, we passed the budget 11-0. If we were to put that budget to the voters and ask the voters to approve it, would our vote of 11-0 actually matter too much to the public? And my guess is no, it would matter too much to the public. I generally like the idea of how we can tweak each other's and make it better, and but let's see what the proposals we have, and then on Tuesday see what we can do to tweak each other's proposals. And I think we all have amendments to do that, to tweak each other's proposals. With that, I'm going to close this one, start the next one.